Good morning, students. I welcome you for the online class of economics. Today, we will be going to continue our topic after globalization, the next World Bank and its formation and its objectives of World Bank formation for our countries. In this particular part, it has been explained there that contrary and financial conference at Britain would in July 1944. The bank began operation in June 1946. The World Bank, although its first loans were made for World War II reconstruction by 1949, the emphasis had shifted to loans for purpose of economic development. World Bank operation headquarters are in Washington D.C. and the objectives of this World Bank is that it helps in protecting the environment, it helps in investing in basic health and educational programs, it helps in promoting social development, it provides assistance and encouragement to private businesses for running the business, it helps in promoting reforms which will create stable microeconomic environment. It helps in strengthening the ability of the government to deliver quality services to the people so that they can take the benefit of this. For that, a common bank was made for all the countries of the world, that is the World Bank. It helps in maintaining the equilibrium in the balance of payments so that it can help the undeveloped countries and the underdeveloped countries to make the economic development. For the main purpose of establishment of World Bank. Now comes World Trade Organization. For what purpose World Trade Organization started? World Trade Organization, many of the students know very well, but beside that, some of the basic information related to the formation of World Trade Organization. General Agreement on Tariff and Trade was established in Geneva to pursue the objective of free trade in order to help in the growth and development of all member countries. In 1947, 23 countries signed GATT. India, one of the founder members of GATT. In 1994, 118 countries were members of GATT. The main purpose of GATT was to ensure competition in commodity by removal of trade barriers. The first 7 rounds of negotiations concluded under GATT aimed at stimulating international trade by reducing the tariff barriers and non-tariff restrictions on imports imposed by member countries. A preparatory committee was set up by GATT, which in turn set up the World Trade Organization in 1995. The WTO Act has a permanent member or the watchdog of international trade. GATT was converted from a provisional agreement into a formal international organization called World Trade Organization with effect from January 1st, 1985. It is directed by the Minister Conference that meet at least once every 2 years, and its regular business is seen by the Geneva Council. WTO is a more powerful body with greater functions as compared to GATT, and it plays a major role in the world economic affairs. So, in short, student, World Trade Organization is the organization which was laid down so as to make a free trade between the nation and to maintain the peace between the countries. Every country is having different rules and regulations to maintain and compromise between the different rules and regulations so as to do a peaceful trade between the nation and to make the economic development of one and the another country. GATT agreement was brought and it was established in Geneva in the objective of free trade in order the health and healthy growth of the countries. 1947, 23 countries had signed the GATT, in which India was also the one of the member. In 1994, 118 countries became the member of the GATT. It was the first 7 rounds of negotiation concluded that under GATT aimed at stimulating international trade by reducing tariff barriers. Tariff means the international country, whatever tax policy is there, if it is charged too high, then the foreign country will hesitate to trade. Will hesitate to trade with the other countries. So because of that, GATT had made such restriction to be off and had helped the different nations to do the trade with each other. World Trade Organization was established as GATT, which in turn set up World Trade Organization WTO in 1995. Okay, first it was a government general agreements on tariff and trade, and later on it converted into WTO 1995. The WTO Act has a permanent watchdog. Watchdog means only will be seeing the particular activities of the different nations when they are doing the trade, whether they are doing right and wrong rules and according to rules and regulations. GATT was converted from a provisional agreement to a formal international organizations only, and that's why its name was World Trade Organization, and it started working from 1st January 1995. It was directed by the Minister Conference that meet at least once every 2 years, and its regular business is seen by the Geneva Council. World Trade Organization is a more powerful body with general functions. Now let us see the features of World Trade Organization. When we talk about the features of World Trade Organization, the main features of World Trade Organizations are as follows: that World Trade Organization is global in its membership. At present, there are how many member countries? 153 member countries in WTO. It is the main organ of implementing the multilateral trade agreement between the nations. It has a much wider scope than its predecessor GATT. The representatives of the members and all of officials of the WTO enjoy international privileges. Each member of WTO has a single voting right. It is a full-fledged international organization in its own right. The WTO administers a unified package of agreements to which member countries accountable. It is a forum for negotiation among its members, whereby members persons discuss issues related to the mutual trade agreements and associated by the documents. So this was the World Trade Organization feature. Students, I hope you have understood there what is the objective of World Trade Organization: to maintain a peace relationship between the countries by making multilateral trade agreements between the nations, so that not only friendly relationship will develop, but also they can help each other for the development of the nations. Functions: the World Trade Organization has the following function. The WTO agreement cover trade in goods and services to facilitate international trade between both bilateral and multilateral. It facilitates the implementation, administration, and operation of the objectives of the multilateral trade agreements, administer the trade review policies, trade review mechanism. It administers the understanding rules and procedures governing the settlement disputes. So these are the various things which is the features of the WTO, which makes the trade between the nations much more easier and smoother. It cooperates with International Monetary Fund, IBRD, and its affiliated agency to achieve better place in global economic policy making, and to help the nation to get credit for doing the international trade also if needed. It is a watchdog of international trade, so it can trade. It cannot act or react on the working of the organization, but it can see and monitor the particular activity which are going between the nations. It examines the trade regimes of the individual members. Trade disputes that cannot be solved through bilateral talks are forwarded to WTO Dispute Settlement Court, where their problems are handled of the different nations, and they may compel the countries to do the trade peacefully. It is a management consultant for world trade. Its economics keep a close watch on the activities of the global economy and provide studies on the main issues of the day. Now becomes objectives of World Trade Organization. When we talk about the objectives of World Trade Organization, the main objectives are as follows: to raise the standard of living in member countries by ensuring full employment and by expanding the production and trade in goods and services, to develop an integrated, viable and durable multilateral trading system, to promote sustainable development in member countries by the optimal use of resources, to help the developing countries to get a share in the growth of international trade, to reduce tariff and non-tariff trade barriers, and to eliminate discriminatory treatment in international trade relations, to ensure linkages between trade policies, environmental policies, and sustainable development. So these were the objectives of World Trade Organization. Student, I think it is clear that it is to raise the standard of living of the peoples in member countries and to make the standard as good as can be, to develop integrated and value. Integrated means the which can be make development of the home produced goods viable and durable multilateral trading system. integrated to one country to another country. To promote sustainable development in member countries means deep development of each nations, which is a part of World WTO. So these were the objectives of World Trade Organization. Now, main criticism of World Trade Organization in case of India is are as follows. Developing countries like India have experienced loss of autonomy, freedom in policy making, because World Trade Organization, they have to take permission from World Trade Organization. These countries are not able to use their legitimate policy instrument to pursue their own developmental goals. World Trade Organization was overloaded agreements with a built-in agenda and harsh terms for developing countries to adjust to. It is argued that the World Trade Organization agenda is shaped, placed, and driven by the United States, European Union, and other developed countries which have negotiating capabilities of and economic strength, which can make the underdeveloped countries not to participate in decision making, because all the rules of WTO will be made under the consider of this developed nation. So these were the criticism against the World Trade Organization. Achievements of the policy of liberation, privatization, and globalization. The various achievements of the policy of liberalization, privatization, and globalization are as follows. As a result of economic reforms implemented by successive agreements, government of over the past decade and a half, our economy has matured in several important respects. Achievement of economic reforms is as indicated by Economic Survey 2009 and 10 are clear from the following points. Very first, rising gross domestic product growth. Since the introduction of economic reforms in 1991, country has shown rise in gross domestic product growth rate in 1991 to 92. Growth rate of GDP was 1.3%. In the ninth plan, GDP grew at 5.5%, and in 10th plan at 7.2%. In 2009 and 10 it grew up at 8%. So you can see or after the LPG came, we can see only the increase in the economic development of the country by the way of GDP. Rise in foreign exchange reserves. Foreign exchange reserves, which were only US dollar billion 5.8 billion dollars in 1991, have shown a tremendous rise to 292.9 US dollar billion in 2010 and 11. Now it has been increased much more. So a rise in foreign exchange reserve, which was very less for our country, had increased by the policy of liberalization, privatization, and globalization, and which is also for the safety of points of our country to be good. Now comes control of inflation. Definitely student, the plus point of economic reform is that it has control inflation from 16.8% in 1981 to 11.4% in 2009 and 10. Rising flow of foreign capital. One of the benefits derived from global integration is the increased inflow of foreign direct investment. FDI was at a US $33.1 billion in 2009 and 10. Rising integration with the world economy. India is now much more integrated with the world economy and has benefited from this integration in many ways. The outstanding success of an IT company and IT enables for services has shown that what Indian skill and expertise can do given the right environment. Rising competitiveness of industrial sector. Sectors such as automobiles, component, textile, and pharmaceuticals are the pillars which show the strength of the industrial sector. So this was about the student about the World Trade Organization formation and its utilization, why it has been formed and how it had helped and the liberalization, privatization, and globalization policy help the underdeveloped nation to make the economic development of the nation, especially the India country, had made much more development with the data. It is much more clear to you how the economic progress of India has been made. Now, challenges of the policy of LPG are as follows. Challenges or failures of economic reforms are agricultural crisis. There has been deceleration in agricultural growth. The growth was not so good. The deceleration is the root cause of the problem of rural distress at that reached crisis in some parts of the country. People have to suffer many losses. Farmers find themselves into crippling debt due to low farm incomes combined with low prices of output and lack of credit in at reasonable prices. These have led to widespread distress migration. People migrated from one place to another place in search of occupation because their farming was not so good that their survival can be there at that particular place. Economic reforms have not been able to benefit the agricultural sector because public investment in agricultural sector, especially in infrastructure, which includes irrigation, power, roads, market linkages, and research, has been reduced in the reform period. Liberalization has forced the small farmers to compete in a small global market where prices of goods have fallen while removal of subsidies has led to increase in the cost of production. It has made farming more expensive. So these was good points about the having the economic reforms. Various policy changes like reduction in import duties on agriculture production, product removal of minimum support price, and lifting of quantitative restriction have increased the trade of international competition to the Indian farmers. The export-oriented growth has favored increased production of cash crop rather than food grains crop. This has increased the prices of food grains. Changing employment pattern. Second importance of this particular liberalization, privatization, and globalization challenges is that there is inadequacy of widely dispersed and sustainable off farm productive employment opportunity that was totally removed. That off farm productive employment opportunity, this is the basic cost of most divide and disparities. When people not found the job, they started dividing or they started selling their farm to her so as to get money and to get some job in other areas. Growth without jobs can be neither be inclusive nor can it bridge divides. Providing essential public services to the poor. We cannot be satisfied with only universal primary education. The challenge is to provide universal secondary education as soon as possible. In the area of health, there continues to be lack of basic services such as availability of clean drinking water and essential things. That was also the challenge faced by many of the areas. Some of the area progress, but some of the area still remain underdeveloped. Inadequacy and adequacy of physical infrastructure. Physical infrastructure like roads, banks, um, other transportation was not good in many of the parts of our country. Quality infrastructure is still a challenge facing our country today, as we can see the roads of our country now also not having good. Protecting the environment. And our concern for environment issue is growing along with the lines of global concern. The threat of climatic changes pose a real challenge to future generation, which we are results which you can see now has whatever problem we are facing with these environmental issues. Slowdown in industrial growth. The post-reform period shows that industrial growth has slowed down. This was due to globalization created countries for free movement of goods and services from foreign countries. It adversely affected the local industries and employment in developing countries. Globalization led to decrease in the demand for domestic industrial products due to cheaper import. There was inadequate investment in infrastructure facilities such as power supply, etc. A developing country like India still does not have access to market of developed countries due to high non-tariff barriers. Fall in tax revenue. In the post-reform period, there has been fall in tax revenue. This was due to tax reduction in the reform period have not resulted in increase in tax revenue for the government. The reform policies involving tariff reduction have reduced the scope for raising revenue through custom duties. To attract foreign investment, tax incentives were provided to foreign investors, which further reduced the scope for raising tax revenue. This has a negative impact on development and welfare expenditure. So, falling tax revenue was also a challenge for the LPG. That in post-reform period there was a fall in tax revenue. This tax revenue is needed for the development of the nation. That was not with the nation with the government. So these were the various problems of LPG. Solution. Second generation reform. The economic reforms initiated in 1991 are now called first generation reforms. These reforms comprising of long-term multilateral package of various policies and programs have put the economy on the path of economic development. We have achieved success in achieving macroeconomic stability, and this was the second generation reform student. This was for today's class. Thank you for tuning in.